Hey, so I'm speaking to you about my voice and my difficulties with it within reason. So, with my voice, I have found it has provided me difficulty in both interpersonal and more interview settings. Because, for starters, first impressions are really important when it comes to whether it's just regardless of the setting altogether. And if you lead with such a bold voice that you just sound disinterested or flat or just boring altogether, that leaves a strong impression that you're not too engaged in a particular thing. And I'll be talking about this in terms of not how I was raised, not how I was growing up, but more in terms of just my interviews within reason. So let's dial it back a few months, and I'll be talking about Disney. So in particular, I was doing a phone screen for Disney. I was really hyped to do this because growing up, well, Disney, you watch some media outlet on your TV, bam, Disney. And in particular, I really enjoy Disney because of their storytelling and how they were able to be a mentor for me growing up, as I didn't really have any, whether it's friends or just my peers or just having any siblings growing up. But that's not a reason for an excuse, but it's more or less that I had a strong story to tell, but not the voice and the means to back it up in terms of sounding very happy, sounding very animated, sounding very excited. Because I had actually watched a video from Disney that had UX designers on the team, and honestly, they were some of the most animated characters that I had seen on the screen, and that's even including Disney characters themselves. I was shocked because I had tried to match or just be equivalent with that, and I really wasn't surprised as to how I should go about doing that. And then fast forward a few months, and we're in February, and I'm interviewing with Nintendo. Similarly, I was really interested in the role, as I had grown up playing Nintendo with the Wii, the Wii U, all these different consoles and all these different IPs as a whole. And in particular, I had been talking about this esports community I joined, how inclusive it was, how engaging the events were overall, and how it went about me in terms of making friends, making connections at my previous college. And similarly, it sort of fell apart because I get it, Nintendo probably has a million gamers just interviewing for them and being yo, I'm a huge Nintendo fan, I love them, and Joy-Con boys all the way, or just something along the lines of that. And I didn't stand out at all because I was flat, I was boring, I was sounding disinterested. And I recognized that, oh well, if it's over a phone, well, at least with Disney at least, how can they tell if you're sounding interested or with a smile on your face? And when it comes to that, it all comes down with your voice and how you express yourselves and how you feel and how you look in terms of it. And I feel I really needed to step things up, and ever since I've been doing mentorship calls in which I look at ADPList and look at mentors who are more advanced in their field, whether they're design managers, more experienced staff or associate people within the field, and just getting their general feedback. And one in particular that stood out to me at least was with this product design manager at a reasonably small company. And they pretty much had me at the beginning where I introduced myself, introduced himself, and we dived into the question. So in terms of this, he was pretty much hey Mike, take it from this perspective. Say you're hanging out with a friend for the first time in forever, and they're asking you how you're doing, what you've been up to, and just something breaks the ice altogether. And he kicked the ball back to me, and this time around, I sounded really different. I was just like, hi, I'm Mike, remember me from when we did XYZ. And then I just like coordinated rather well in terms of like talking about myself in whole. I'd say that my takeaway from this was that I didn't need to flip a switch when it came to like my friends, my peers, people I was familiar with, and then a total stranger like a recruiter or like a senior hiring manager per se. Because at the end of the day, they're all just people, and how you go about talking to them really matters in terms of the grand scheme, because they just want to see that there's someone they can work alongside with, in addition to scoping out if your skill set's a fit for a team. And oftentimes I pass the ladder, but I falter with the first step, because it comes down to it, if you sound like too well spoken or just like too like try hard for my aspect, or just like trying too hard in terms of just like selling all of like your qualifications, selling all these things without regard to like this more social aspect of the interview, which is just like getting to know the interviewer, getting along with the interviewer, just making sure that you're a possible fit for a team and not just reading off a script or just memorizing lines you have to say. More or less just being more engaged on the interpersonal front and just being comfortable with that at the end of the day. Additional things I got recommended was possibly just like taking an improv class, taking an acting class, and right on, man. I am doing that right about now. I'm set to start within the incoming weeks at Upright Citizens Brigade, in which I'll be taking some introductory improv/acting classes online, given the nature of the pandemic. But I would say key takeaways from this would be that you have to play the cards you're dealt in terms of like whether you sound too serious with a monotone voice, or you don't really know the social cues when it comes down to it, and just try to hone in on these, identify them, and just practice when you're able to at the end of the day. Because when it comes down to it, don't be stiff as in like memorizing a bunch of things, but just engaging in more of these social activities as a whole, as it definitely helps when it comes down to it, given the nature of Zoom University at the moment and how debilitating it might be towards your social skills. And I'd say that's about it from me, but I hope you learned something from this. But as always, thanks for watching, and don't forget to be awesome.